Microsoft Flight Simulator is about to be released like a passenger that's forgot to put their seatbelt on during heavy turbulence. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I've had early press access to Microsoft Flight Simulator, so in this video, I'm going to tell you what to expect, who will probably enjoy it, who won't enjoy it, and where things are going to go moving into the future. So, fasten up your safety harnesses, do a loop-the-loop, stall, and crash into the ground. Now, the most important part of any game or simulator is, of course, not story, not gameplay, not physics. No, it's the graphics. And Microsoft Flight Simulator... Look at those trees from the air. Look at those fields from the air. Look at those buildings from the air. Look at the grass. Okay, everything's going to be from the air because it's a flight simulator. But you get what I'm saying. It looks bloody fantastic. And that's because Microsoft Flight Simulator uses a whole bunch of technologies to produce this end result that is very photoreal. Even in the case of the UK where we are here, where it doesn't have the 3D LDAR scan data from aeroplanes. This is using 2D Big Map data, which is then augmented using Terminator 2 AI code to populate the terrain with auto-gen buildings, trees, and other details which give it its three-dimensionality. And the end effect is even the lowest detail areas in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 often end up looking better than some of the highest detailed areas that you'd get in other previous simulators. This video is not a technical analysis of the graphics in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. The point is, it looks bloody fantastic. The lighting's amazing, the shading's amazing, the terrain looks amazing, it looks nice. And bizarrely, in a highly unlike Flight Simulator way, it looks nice whilst actually hitting decent frame rates. Now, to put context to this, the system that I'm using is a 3900X 2080 Ti 32GB of RAM SSD, a top-end system. So, you know, it's a beefy system, but with that system, I'm able to turn the graphics up to pretty high, if not max on a lot of the settings, and still hit 40, 50, 60 plus FPS. It does depend on weather, location, and scenario as to how well it runs. And I think at this point in time, there's some stuff going on with the alpha where certain things run slow that really shouldn't because there's less stuff actually happening. I've flown over cities which are laser scan cities, and it's run better than flying through barren countryside. So aside from that, when everything's working, it's just actually mind-boggling how well it does run. The key thing will be to see what the actual performance is on the final version of the game and to see those benchmarks with various systems running it in the different weather, different locations to see what the true frame rates are. But I would think most people will be able to access this even on mid-range systems and have it still look pretty nice, which is also really good news for people that maybe want to play this with a VR headset. Now, it would seem at launch, Microsoft is taking a very literal flight simulator approach with this title. And what I mean by that is that at launch, you've got flight training, which takes you through the basic controls all the way to first solo navigation. And it's really nicely presented and very similar to the process that a real pilot would go through if they're first learning how to fly. But it doesn't have anything in there like a Euro Truck Simulator experience where you build up from nothing to an airline, or an epic story where you've got to move some white powdery substance across borders without getting intercepted. So it's very bare bones, but despite that lack of traditional single player, it does contain missions, or they describe them as activities, which at the moment consists of landing challenges or bush trips. The landing challenges, unsurprisingly, are different landing challenges where you can land different aircraft at various different airports around the world in varying conditions. Nicely, each of the challenges has its own little scoreboard, which is online, so you can compare your landing skills against friends, with your landing rating being based on how good you were in terms of being on target and how soft your landing was. So it can actually get quite addictive, trying to get as high score as possible and seeing which of your friends has wasted the most amount of money on flight simulator equipment. Now, in the 70s adult movie star mode, bus trips, you have flights that are broken down into multiple sections, and the idea is that you fly them through visual flight rules, VFR, and you don't use any of the advanced navigational tools, GPS and everything that tells you exactly where you are. Instead, you look at the ground, you look at your map, and you pray that you have hit the correct path to each nav beacon. You probably haven't, you probably get lost, and then you're going to have a very long flight, which wasn't planned. Totally didn't happen to me. I completely am really good at this mode. But it's surprisingly fun. It's really weirdly chill and zen. You're not talking super high-intensity action here. This is desert bus territory. Perhaps the closest thing would be this train simulator in an aeroplane, which I really enjoy, but, I think it's quite a niche enjoyment. It's a really good way to actually do flights that are probably quite similar to what a lot of people are doing in these small aircraft in reality. The general impression I get is that at the moment it's relatively bare bones, but more missions will be added, and crucially there's a scripting system that will allow anyone to build missions and activities for the simulator. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes and how far it gets taken by the time the simulator comes out on the 18th of August. But the real bread and butter of Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 is, of course, the world map mode. Basically, you have the entire world in this simulator, and that's not necessarily the most novel of things when it comes to flight simulators. That's been a thing going all the way back to the 80s. But the difference here with Microsoft Flight Simulator is out of the box, you have the entire world, but photo scanned. You've got this satellite map imagery there, and in certain locations laser scanned, and to a degree and fidelity that's just not ever happened before, as I said earlier in the video, thanks to Bing Maps. Now, not only do you have all the terrain and locations that you can fly to, whatever you imagine you could go to it, you also have the entire world's weather systems placed in the globe as they are in reality at this point in time. So you can set the flight conditions to be live to what's happening now. You can also set the time of day, obviously, to whatever the time of day is now, and you can basically recreate a real-world flight as it would happen in reality right now, but right now in the simulator, which is very handy at this point in history where it's kind of awkward to do certain flights to certain locations. Now, what's really cool is, you're like, oh, that looks nice. I mean, it's actually a really nice 3D model of the Earth there. You can see that it's nighttime on that side of the planet, where the Australian upside downers live, or the people on the correct side of the planet here, still daytime. You can also add filters for you've got the satellite data, IFR. You can blend the two together. But weather layer, precipitation. Look at this! I can actually tell if it's raining in the UK or not. Well, there's rain on the way, but right now it's not raining. That's the one day of the year where it's clear. You can really choose you can really see what you're going to choose to fly in. Obviously, you can change it to whatever you want as well. But it's really nice how you can go through that real-world procedure of planning a flight based off the weather, which is a huge, if not one of the biggest components of real-world flying. But we're not stopping there. The really nice thing with this is just how seamless and quick it is to get a flight going where you'll be like, okay, I want to fly from one location to another location. I mean, you could just fly in one location and just dawdle around and quit the game. But say you want to actually do a flight, you can literally you just click on the airport that you want to take off from. So in this case, let's go for London Gatwick. Why not? And you'll notice there's planes here. They've integrated real-world planes into the simulator, as well as when you've got multiplayer turned on, you can actually see your friends, and you can join in on a friend's plane if you want to as well. So we could set as departure and fly straight with your friend if you want to. But if you want to just go from an airport, set as departure, and we're going to let's go to Croatia. Let's go to Pula Airport. I think that's down here. There we go. Croatia, absolutely beautiful. Get to fly over Venice. Amazing. I set that as my departure. So they've made it really seamless, but I've proven myself to be an idiot. So we'll set that as arrival. There we go. So you're sorted there, and then you're like, okay, you pick your plane you want to fly with. You could have done that in any order you want to. Of course, you've got all the planes in the simulator from an Airbus Boeing 747, which is now discontinued. So even if you wanted to be a real-world pilot, this is the only way you're going to get to fly it, unless maybe you're moving one from a museum to another museum. You know, you pick what you want. Float planes, stunt planes, Robins, planes. As you can tell, I'm a very serious real-world pilot. I know all my planes, but let's go for like, yeah, let's go for I like the Diamond aircraft. We've already got that selected, so we've got the plane selected there, and you're like, okay, right, let's just fly. Actually, you know what? It's night time. I don't want it to be night time. Let's rotate the Earth because I'm God. And there you go. Perfect. Fly. Okay, so we've loaded in here, and loading times, I would say, are not the best, but they're not terrible. They're kind of on a par with what I'm used to in flight sims like X-Plane 11. Sometimes quicker, sometimes slower. I'm sure it depends on what's going on the Microsoft server end of things. So I'm going to be using a cheeky Xbox 360 controller for this, because you can play Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 using a gamepad as much as you can using really fancy HOTAS controls. So our plane here is on the runway. We are indeed ready to fly. And look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. Look at those cockpit details. The detail of the cockpit is certainly superb in this. I mean, obviously the shade, the lighting, all the displays. This is a more modern aeroplane, so it's all glass. We haven't got any proper gyroscopic stuff in there. It's all digital. But here we go, Pula Airport, and you know what? We're just ready to go, basically. So power up, brakes off, and fasten your seatbelts. You're probably not going to land with an intact spine. But what's really nice is the Pula Airport in this, despite, again, it's not a... this is not laser photo scan data. This is using basic big map data, and this is not a key airport in the simulator. This is just what would be classed as a super generic airport. Despite that, it looks absolutely gorgeous, and I've been to this airport in real life. It looks very similar to this in real life. I mean, I will have to dock some points because in real life there's a balcony area on the top of the airport with like a little restaurant thing, so you can sit having a nice beer with the breeze. But it pretty much looks exactly like that in real life. If you don't trust me, you can go on the maps and see, or look at some photographs. So as we've taken off there, let's put the landing gear up, as is tradition once you've taken off. What you'll notice is you've got all the air traffic controller talk, chatter going on there, which is fantastic. That's in all the different languages, depending on what system you've got, because it uses the Microsoft system, Microsoft voice system to do that. But what you've got at the top of the screen here is the options to choose if you yourself are managing the comms or if you want the AI controller to do it. So you can have the AI fly the plane for you, manage the radio, and do all the checklist stuff. So you don't really have to, if you don't want to get fully involved with the simulation, you can choose how involved you want to be. You can also choose your camera options. You know, you've got like your nav log, fuel load, always not enough fuel in my case, map, and all the other tools that you would typically want in a flight simulator. They're all there to hand. Really nicely, if you click this button, it will pop out of the simulator screen and go on another monitor. So you can put all your maps and everything on separate screens if you've got a more, crazy multi-screen setup, which is really nice and really handy. So you can just have the sim on one screen and your dials and everything on everything else, or put them on your little glass displays if you've got a crazy cockpit. Look at Pula to the left here. So absolutely fantastic. I've had a good chance of walking around that city. Some really nice Roman architecture there, and that's it. We're just off flying. So you will also notice in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 the audio is absolutely fantastic as well. So we're just flying nice and stable here. And you can hear the engine note. Really nice tone to it. Every single plane obviously has its own engine note to it. They all have a really distinct sound. You know, turn the engines down here. Really nice. There's a really nice transition with the audio. It doesn't feel like a repetitive loop. They've done a really good job of capturing it. They've also captured the audio from different positions in the plane. So depending on where you actually sit and move the camera, you get slightly different audio. So it's like a proper 3D audio soundscape. And then you'll also notice, probably when we took off you might have heard it, but you can hear like the body creaking. But if we put a bit more strain on the airframe, this plane's a little bit tighter. It totally depends on the plane. There you go. You can hear it a bit there. It depends on the plane. The more sort of shaky-bakey Cessna creaks and shakes all over the place, as does the real plane. Whereas the more modern jets or the more modern passenger propeller-driven planes don't creak so much. But if that doesn't excite you enough, or you know, or the cockpit view, I mean, look at this upholstery. this is a plane for rich people. You go to the external view, and you're greeted by this absolutely gorgeous. Not only the gorgeous graphics, I'll stop talking about the graphics, but the again the audio there you can hear from the front. Hear the different engine notes as you go around. Got a bit of Doppler if you move the camera enough, but you're also going to hear the wind being pushed from behind the plane. And then look at what they've done a really good job with the chase cam in this, so that you get a really good sense of how the wind is affecting the aircraft, how it's buffeting and moving it. So it can really help you get a good sense of the movement, despite the fact you're not in a motion rig, unless you're really blessed and flying it in a motion rig. The camera movements are absolutely gorgeous. It's really stunning. It really lets you appreciate the depth of the physics to be found in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. Let's get back in the cockpit. You can set those cameras up to however you want. In my case, I've set the cockpit to be pretty stationary because I don't like the camera moving around too much. But on the subject of the physics, which we've meandered ourselves to, you know, it really, to me, as someone that's only very briefly flown a real Cessna, and that's it, and been a passenger in a few jet planes, it is visually and in the nature of how the planes fly around, it seems very convincing to me. And I think a lot of people were worried with Microsoft Flight Simulator, thinking, oh, maybe it's going to be more on that arcade side of things, maybe it's not a pure sim. But the physics are absolutely superb in this. Now, obviously, you know, there's going to be super advanced aspects of simulation, which I am not qualified to comment on because, you know, you've probably noticed from this video, I'm very much more a sort of sightseeing, casual flight simmer. You know, I like to jump into the sims, I like to do simple flights, I like to look at the scenery, and I certainly enjoy how the planes fly and the details and learning about the planes. But, you know, I'm not the type of person that's getting into the Boeing 747 and planning the flight down to the nth degree using all the available equipment in the plane. Maybe that will occur over time as I'm brainwashed into Microsoft Flight Simulator, but that's just not what I'm into at this point in time. So, you know, I'm sure the hardcore, super duper hardcore flight sim fans are going to be nitpicky and will probably find aspects with certain planes that, you know, they're not as detailed as this mod plane that cost £300 separate to the simulator. But, you know, I'm not the right channel to go to for that information. I highly recommend checking out one of the various super duper hardcore flight sim channels because they will be able to review those components of the game properly. But yes, from my cursory view, you know, the planes fly absolutely fantastic, looks great. All this stuff in the cockpit that should be clickable, as far as I can tell, is clickable. All the screens work as I'd imagine they should do. And for example, this navigational screen is telling me that I've been flying the wrong way and I should get back on my flight path. And there we go. You don't even have to think to be a pilot, just follow the red line. But, you know, absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to really enjoy when the final version of this comes out, delving more in depth into different weather and doing longer flights. Really experiencing everything that this has to offer. Obviously, at this point in time, I'm using a press build of the game. This is pre-release. Things are going to change, things are going to improve, and things might even get worse. Who knows? That is the nature of games development. Now, I could talk about Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 for multiple hours and not get into all the details, as is the case with simulators. And this is just our first video coverage of the title pre-launch. So really what I want to do is sort of round this video off by really encapsulating what I think Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 is really about and who it is for. And the easiest way to summarize it or describe it is that it's a hardcore simulator that's been made accessible. And it's not being made accessible by compromising the simulation elements. The aspects that make it accessible are more the user interface, the way you can choose how much the AI controls the plane, the hints that you can turn off that explain how all the different things operate, the way that you just choose the weather, or even when you're choosing your flight, how it automatically then puts that into the system on the plane so you can then just follow the flight path. You could go into it, as I say, like a proper pilot, doing all the little itty-bitty details, but you could just go into it knowing absolutely nothing and still get a really nice flight experience from it. And of course, the visuals and the sheer fidelity of the terrain, not only does it look nice, the real utility there from a flight sim point of view is the fact that you can do proper VFR flying wherever you are in the world. And then from a casual point of view, you can just enjoy exploring and looking at different locations, which has its own unique game meta to it. It's a very zen and relaxing game to play, even if you're literally just doing sightseeing. I think the only people that would be really disappointed by Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 as it is right now are people that have to have that game there and that progression there. As I say, just something like Euro Truck Sim but with aeroplanes, or something analogous to that, or something completely different, but a game would really take this to another level, and I've not seen any hint of that happening to this title at this point in time. Personally, I don't need that. I can just enjoy this indefinitely as it is right now, but I totally understand how that could be a sticking point for many players, and I certainly hope it's something that Microsoft address in the future. So there you go, that's our first proper video on Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. We will hopefully be live streaming this soon, and I will do more specific videos going more in depth. There's only so much I can say in a sub 30-minute video. I don't like doing super long videos. That's what live streams are for. So if you want to keep abreast of our content, you know you need to click that like button, you know you need to subscribe, and you know you need to bang your forehead against the bell. And that's just how YouTube works. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see, and I'll try and show you that. But until then, thank you for watching this, guys. Happy tea drinking. Goodbye.